everything after Weathertop is so different. I cannot believe how much changed from the book to the movie. And this is essentially just going to be a long rant on it. And then I just want to talk about Frodo and the end and his courage, which the movies just don't show. But anyway, before we get into this essay, be sure to subscribe because I am reading through Lord of the Rings for the first time, as most of you know, and I'm giving my thoughts on every chapter. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, make sure you subscribe. But let's do a little background, or I guess a little comparison between the book and the movie. I don't really need to do this because you probably all know this anyway, but just spare me here. I'm doing this for my own sake because I just want to process through this. So in the movie, Frodo gets stabbed and they look for Kingsfoil. Arwen comes and takes Frodo away. And she is the one that keeps Frodo safe and sends the river horses out to get the ring wraiths. Straightforward. It's a great scene and I love it. It's so good in the movies, but holy smokes is the book different. Let's talk about this. In the book, Frodo gets stabbed at Weathertop. He is in immense pain and seems to really be struggling, but the journey must continue. Aragorn heals it up as best as he can, but he knows, although it's kind of just conjecture at this point, that Frodo is falling into some sort of spell or something because the blade was poisoned or possessed with something dark from Mordor. But they have no other option than to go forward. So they go forward for about 2 weeks. That's right, you heard me. 2 weeks. I just looked it up. It's not exactly that, but Frodo was stabbed by the Witch King at Weathertop on the night of October 6th, and he was found by Glorfindel on October 18th. This means he traveled for 12 days after being wounded. And all that time they are on the road, but also trying to avoid the road. They find the 3 trolls that Bilbo, Gandalf, and the dwarves were trapped by, and they don't really find too many signs of the wraiths. But they cross this bridge and actually find a gem on the other side, which is weird, but they just kind of keep going. And later you kind of learn that that's Glorfindel, a sign that he left. The whole time, and you don't even know who Glorfindel is if you don't read the book, so just keep listening. But the whole time Frodo is just kind of falling slowly and becoming a wraith. But it's not really that evident yet. The only thing that's evident is that Frodo's vision seems to be changing. He sees things a little cloudier than what he used to, on top of his physical strength slowly waning as well. But there's this section in the book that Sam says he kind of thinks that Frodo is healed. It says, "What is the matter with my master?" asked Sam in a low voice, looking appealingly at Strider. "His wound was small and is already closed, but there's nothing to be seen but a cold white mark on his shoulder." Aragorn warns him then of the danger of the wound. And he says, "Frodo has been touched by the weapon of the enemy," said Strider. "And there is some poison or evil work that is beyond my skill to drive out, but do not give up hope, Sam." And so after this, they continue on again for 12 days. And all of a sudden they hear horse hooves. That never means anything good because they think it's a black rider. But then there are bells on this horse and they still hide. And then this absolute Fabio elf comes into view. The description is kind of hilarious of him. It says, "The light faded and the leaves on the bushes rustled. Clearer and nearer now the bells jingled. And clippity-clip came the quick trotting feet. Suddenly into view below came a white horse gleaming in the shadows, running swiftly. In the dusk, its headstall flickered and flashed as if it were studded with gems like living stars. The rider's cloak streamed behind him and his hood was thrown back. His golden hair flowed, shimmering in the wind of his speed. To Frodo it appeared that a white light was shining through the form and raiment of the rider, as if through a thin veil." So Glorfindel, the elf, comes to see them, and he tells them that he's been searching for them for 9 days. The other elves that Frodo met, Gildor and his lot, sent back word to Rivendell about Frodo and how there were riders chasing them, so Elrond sends out riders in all direction, and Glorfindel is just one of those, not Arwen. This is when it gets juicy, because I want to talk about how different this is and how this seems like such a pivotal moment for this character that I have to gush about because it elevated this character so much in my mind. But Glorfindel puts Frodo on his horse and he doesn't ride the horse with Frodo. He walks ahead of the group and Aragorn is in the back. But the wraiths all of a sudden pop out and both Glorfindel and Aragorn rush back to protect the hobbits. And Glorfindel yells out to Frodo to go, but Frodo can't. He's being tempted too deeply. He doesn't want to move the horse because the wraiths are wooing him. But then Glorfindel has a backup plan and he tells his horse to move rather than Frodo to get the horse to move. And the horse shoots off faster than any of the Black Riders can push their horses. So Frodo at this moment is going alone, which is nuts. I almost just want to read the last 2 full pages of Tolkien's work here because it's some immense good writing, but I'll only read the highlights. Essentially, Frodo pushes on, but he continues to be tempted by the darkness just to give in, which is a great part of this chapter, the end of this, where Frodo is just flirting back and forth between being tempted and continuing on his horse. He looks back at the horses, and then we have this line. They appear to have cast aside their hoods and black cloaks, and they were robed in white and gray. I think this is Frodo becoming a wraith and not him seeing reality, but I asked some people on our Discord and I'm waiting for an answer, so they haven't given me one yet. But if you know if this is him becoming a wraith or maybe this is actually him seeing reality, let me know in the comments because I'm very curious about this one line. I would say 99% of me thinks that this is him becoming a wraith and seeing these like weird figures. But anyway, the book says this. He knew nothing that would prevent them from crossing as easily as he had done, and he felt that it was useless to try to escape over the long, uncertain path from the ford to the edge of Rivendell, if once the rider crossed. In any case, he felt that he was commanded urgently to halt. Hatred again stirred in him, but he had no longer the strength to refuse. Suddenly, the foremost rider spurred his horse forward. It checked at the water and reared up. With a great effort, Frodo sat upright and brandished his sword. "Go back," he cried. "Go back to the land of Mordor and follow me no more." His voice sounded thin and shrill in his own ears. The riders halted, but Frodo had not the power of Bombadil. His enemies laughed at him with the harsh and chilling laughter. Come back, they called. "To Mordor we will take you." "Go back," he whispered. The ring, they cried with deadly voices, and immediately their leader urged his horse forward into the water, followed closely by the other 2. "By Elbereth and Luthien the Fair," said Frodo with a last effort lifting up his sword, "you shall have neither the ring nor me." Whew. Then the leader, who was now half across the ford, stood up menacing in his stirrups and raised his hand. Frodo was stricken dumb. He felt his tongue cleave to his mouth and his heart laboring. His sword broke and fell out of his shaking hand. The elf horse reared and snorted. The foremost of the black horses had almost set foot upon the shore. Then the riders got swept off, but yes, Frodo, standing up to temptation. He feels it and he resists it. And he's just talking back to the wraiths, and it's incredible. And the wraiths' power to just make him stop talking is insane. It seems to show the reality of Frodo's temptation here and how he really doesn't want to resist it, but he resists it nonetheless. There are such good lessons for life in this that I love so much, and I cannot believe how different this is from the movie. Just the fact that he was there alone is insane. And then how he had the strength, or rather, he didn't have the strength, but mustered up the strength to resist the wraiths, is so good. I wish the movie had this, and I think the movie depiction is still good, but it makes me think that Frodo's a little weakling to me in the movies. And I kind of see him as that whenever I watch them. But now I think I love Frodo so much because this is maybe the greatest show of strength that we've seen in the entire series so far. Frodo, here he's turning into a wraith pretty much. I guess he's on the edge of temptation to become a wraith when he is surrounded by darkness and is alone and isolated from everyone else. And he still stands up against the darkness and the evil of Mordor. It is such a hopeful chapter. It is such a good way to end book 1. I felt like I was watching the World Cup. I found myself nearly standing up and cheering for Frodo at the end when I was reading this. I know this essay really isn't about anything other than a gush fest, but I just finished this section and had to gush because Frodo is amazing here. And it's such a good microcosm of real temptation too. And that all you want to do is give in, but by the power and ability he has to resist here, it's just immense and it's absolutely beautiful. And I had to throw this out there real quick because it's a beautiful ending to this book, and I cannot wait to keep reading. So subscribe and like the video and all that other stuff if you want to hear my first time thoughts on the book and others like Harry Potter, Brandon Sanderson, and Star Wars and all that other nerdy content. But oh my gosh, very excited to keep reading. And I'll see you in the next one.